this thing on?
We talking about practice, man.
I work with my hands. It's a misdemeanor in 27 states.
You gotta be comfortable with your co-host in this amount of space.
Yeah, I can see me and you.
This guy runs a state.
You get that through your head?
You just got hashtag content.
Technology and stuff.
Open your grill. It's stuck in your teeth.
Now I have to mark them so I don't get the lick mic.
You're not really that stupid, are you?
Quavos.
I'm just here so I won't get fined.
We don't have a lot of editing this time.
The ceiling is the roof. Let's make it happen.
The ceiling, not round 2, but it is the second round in the Battle of Lord Stanley's Cup.
Matthew Coller, an ESPN hockey insider and reporter for 1500 ESPN, joins us to talk some puck.
Plus, hit it hard, man. Long John Daly back in the winner's circle.
And it's not March, but it's still Selection Sunday.
To be determined, episode 10 previously recorded from the lovely studio in Mom's basement.
Whoop whoop!
At Sports by Bond, Stephen Bond, alongside the effervescent.
Oh, yes. I like that. Effervescent.
I goofed it at first. I shouldn't have done
Baby
that.
boy to
I was
Prince.
trying-
Ah, yeah.
At Trabs Matt Traybold. Matthew.
Scooty Minx.
At Scooty Minx, a.k.a. at Scooty Minx, a.k.a. at Matthew if Mom's upset at you.
Matthew Joseph.
Matthew
Wait,
Joseph.
is that my middle name?
Is it?
I always get my brother's middle name and my middle name mixed up.
Hold on.
Like a psychopath.
Wait a minute. You don't remember your own middle name?
Because they're both J's. It's Joseph. I'm pretty sure it's Joseph.
You're pretty sure. Do we have to get the licenses out?
we gotta get the papers
I think
out.
we may have to stop the recording as
You
I just
just
halted
stopped
the
it.
music because this is breaking news.
No.
I'll
I
bring it back
know
up
it
a
is. It's Joseph.
My goodness.
I'm getting the reins back.
I always want to throw out the rundown and just discuss this for the next 15 minutes. We have a lot to get to, though. We have a lot to get to, Maddie. We're talking puck. Second round in the battle for Lord Stanley's Cup. As I just mentioned, I should have written that better, is nearing
Lord
an
Stanley.
end. There we go.
Sorry, what were you saying?
Ay. All right, plus beer guru Will Cleveland going to join us to discuss the Pennsylvania beer scene. And finally, another day, another airport problem.
It's every day.
It is, really. Only I didn't make national news, and
Dr. Dow.
I didn't get paid anything for this.
Yeah, buddy.
I don't know if that's a good tease or not, but it was an interesting problem at the airport, so maybe you've had similar problems. I don't know. Maddie, what's the word this week?
The word is a little puck.
Puck is the word,
Little
huh?
puck.
Listen, it's hockey season. It's playoffs. It certainly felt like that in upstate New York, although for those of you that tuned into the Friday show, I didn't experience that because I was down in Tampa.
But hey, that's a growing hockey market.
It is very, very much so.
It's a look weird, guy.
Very much so.
It's a look weird on the.
You got a little pick there. We've gone.
No, but see, it's not a pick under. It's a pick on top. I think I'm bleeding.
Oh,
no,
no.
I'm not bleeding.
All right. Not a good way to start the podcast.
The boys
bleeding.
out there leaking.
Are you going to have to be in the IL? Are you hurt or you're injured? Which is it?
As long as it doesn't look like I'm picking my nose, that's not what happened.
All right. Nashville playing today. They take care of business against the St. Louis Blues. And really what I thought St. Louis was fortunate to be in the playoffs and fortunate to be in the second round. I feel like they sort of peaked at this time because they sold at the trade deadline. Not anything massive, but they did sell their best defenseman to Washington. I was amazed, given their tumultuous season. They had a coaching change about halfway through. You look at Nashville. They also made a blockbuster trade at the beginning of the year to get PK Subban. They get a very good... They get the better end of that bargain, I think, in a very nice piece in PK Subban. And really, what's so surprising is that he's been on the second line of that defensive unit. If you're going to trade for a number one defenseman, you think he'd be on the first line, but that defense has played so well. Pekka Rinne played so well in this postseason. That team looks like it's poised and ready for a Stanley Cup run.
It's all about the P's. It's all about the K's. But then again, it's not really. I mean, obviously, Pekka Rinne, PK Subban, those are the talisman. Those are the big-time pieces. That's when you're... Yep. I mean, if someone knows just a couple guys on the team, it's got to be those guys. But what makes them such a contender, it's just the depth past that.
The Anaheim Oilers series, so fascinating to me. This might be the most fascinating series Anaheim erases a 3-goal deficit in 3 minutes in Game 5 to win in double overtime. And you think for an experienced, elder team, they're just going to crush Edmonton in Game 6. No. Or you may think Edmonton is going to fold because they're a younger group. Not the case. Edmonton came out and looked like the seasoned vet, scoring not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, not 5, not 6, but 7 times against Anaheim. That game was over in the first few minutes. I mean, you had said at one point it's 3-0, and it was a few minutes into the game. I said, there's no way that can be right.
We're like looking at what the actual start time was, and the fact that they went for a 5-er in the first period, and none of them, not even assists, came from Connor McDavid.
I thought that series was over in Game 5. I thought Anaheim solidified that series with that type of win. Not the case. We're going to get a Game 7 finally. It's going to be the first Game 7. We've had a bunch of OT games, but no Game 7s. Little sound effect there. Not from the board, but from one Scooty Minx.
Yeah, but it sounded like it was from the board.
It definitely did.
It
was
sounded.
that good.
It was that.
You were that committed.
It was terrible. It was awful.
All right, let's jump on to the Caps and the Pens. The Caps, excuse me there. Caps hang on in Game 5 against the Pens despite Sid the Kid returning. Caps get it done in the third by scoring 3 goals late. This series is just so fascinating to me, and really I think it comes down to the way these two teams have matched up previously, and this year to me is completely different than any other year. Even though it may feel that way, I think it's completely different for this reason. Washington recognizes that window is closing with this group and with maybe Ovi in particular, and they went all in. They figured we can get a blue-chip defenseman. We've got Holtby in the goal. We've got the offense with Backstrom, with Ovi, and with Oshie. This is the year to buy in, to do it. They do it, and they get what they feel they need to make a cup run. And the GM says as much, that we're kind of going all in. The Penguins, meanwhile, couldn't be more injured. Your number one goalie's out. Chris Letang, a great defenseman, is out. They've been banged up. Now Sid the Kid is injured. This is a team that really can't stay healthy, but yet they're the ones poised to make the Stanley Cup run, and Washington still can't figure out the second round for however many years it's been.
And picking a winner out of this series is a tough question for me, because on one hand, it seems like the Penguins are a team of destiny of sorts, because you have that soul patch, Marc-Andre Fleury. Who thought that he'd be having this kind of impact? And what they've been doing after having all these injuries come down on them. But on the other end, the way the first couple games went, you thought, there's no way Pittsburgh, maybe not sweep, but Pittsburgh's not going to have that much trouble closing out this series. Yeah. And look what the Caps have done.
The question becomes, can the Caps become the Cavs, the Cubs, and even the Patriots, all erasing huge deficits, whether it be series deficits or a deficit in a game, given the Patriots were down by, 25 points in Super Bowl 51. Cavs and Cubs both come from 3-1, down 3-1. I don't know if this Caps team can do it. Sure, on paper they probably can, but then again, you look on paper and you look in terms of history, and the Penguins always seem to have their number. They always seem to have the Capitals' number. This matchup is amazing to me. It really is.
The fact that we're getting so early on in the playoffs is just a tasty treat. But I don't know if the Penguins, even with everything up against them, with the momentum maybe shifting right now in the series, with all of these injuries, but they did it last year. It's so close in terms of the experience of getting that far and having what it takes to dig down deep and have it. I don't know.
And
They took a smack in the mouth, but I don't know if they're going to have trouble actually finishing it out.
Pittsburgh did make a few moves in the middle of their season, acquiring a few pieces as well. So they have quietly made some moves because the core has stayed the same. You've got your core there with Malkin, with Crosby.
Marc-Andre?
I was going to say Marc-Andre, but
No.
Matt Murray took over this year.
It's absolutely.
Again, another core piece. You're solidified in goal, if nothing else. Just a fascinating group. The series that isn't fascinating is New York and Ottawa. It may be the most competitive, but it's the least fascinating in my mind.
Well, it's funny. So you being a former TV guy, me being a TV guy now.
Yeah.
And there's all these.
Hey, I'm still technically in TV.
Oh, you absolutely. Wait, well, yeah. Sorry, that was out of line. As you was playing with Siri over there.
Siri, something happened with Siri.
She's
and,
being a little minx. She's being a little minx.
It was recording everything we were saying, I think, for a while. So
Yeah. So I mean, as you
sorry,
know,
go ahead.
as you know, I'm not sure if all of the viewers know. So there's a lot of restrictions.
Yes.
Like sometimes it's needing the game to be over to be able to show it.
Yep.
And you always think that you're going to have that series be able to be shown on the 6 o'clock news or the 10 o'clock news, whatever it is. And sure enough, one team or another makes a huge comeback and it goes to OT, and you have to just put up just a random scoreboard.
Which is not as good in TV terms. You'd rather have the video than
It's not as much zhuzh.
hold on, as much what?
Zhuzh.
Zhuzh. Okay, all right.
I kind of hit I said like ziz.
I didn't know where you were going with that little comment there. All right, so we got through that little tidbit. I wrote down here, and this was before we realized the end of the Anaheim-Edmonton series, that we had yet to have a Game 7 in these playoffs. But now we're going to get one. We're going to get one with Anaheim and Edmonton. I don't think the playoffs have been any less entertaining because we've had a bunch of overtime games.
Yeah, and there's been so many. It's like every time you turn around, for better or for worse, as the story I just told a second ago. But when you lose 7-1 in Game 6, I think you lose the chance to host Game 7, right? So I think
There you go.
it's actually going to be in Edmonton now, right? Yeah, I think that's the rule. So Game 7 in Edmonton now because they won so well. No, it's an Anaheim.
No, it's Anaheim, so you're okay.
Quack, quack.
Maddie, admittedly, you're not the biggest hockey guy.
Oh, you couldn't tell from that what I just said? That's not a rule.
Is there a series that has intrigued you the most over this stretch?
Well, my Avalanche. Maybe not mine.
Not even close to making the playoffs.
They were pretty bad. They're pretty bad.
Okay.
Well, it's just got to be Penguins Caps. You don't have to be a big taker in of
A consumer?
whatever.
A taker in. I'm going to just make
No.
another note here.
Taker in sounds better. No, it sounds
Okay.
it sounds
All right.
horrible. Of puck to know that that's an unbelievable series. That is a big rivalry. That has big time pieces that get a lot of eyes. That you want to slap your peepers on. It's huge. I think it's still that. And someone who loves him some Pittsburgh sports, not
You do?
necessarily in the NHL in terms of favorite teams that I root for, but you talk about Buccos and
All right.
Steelers. That I still like me some Pens.
I would agree just because of the history and because Washington is statistically and what should be by all measurables the best team in the postseason. I would say the second most intriguing series for me has been Anaheim and Edmonton. And not because it's going to Game 7, not for that reason at all, just because you see kind of the old guard in Getzlaf and Perry facing off against the younger guard in Connor McDavid. Edmonton's a very intriguing team, and I don't know if it's that we just don't get to see them as much on the West Coast, or the East Coast, as the West Coast guys do, I should say. Because here on the East, they play a little later. Sometimes you don't always stay up for the games. A lot of times you don't even get to see the games unless they're nationally televised. So a lot of us are just being exposed to Connor McDavid in depth for the first time, where you can watch him in multiple games rather than just a game here or there, and you go, okay, I saw the highlight. He made this ridiculous move. You're really seeing the impact that he has for 60 minutes as opposed to just the highlight. So I think for that maybe reason alone, it makes it more interesting. And then, like I said, you got the old guard in Anaheim, and can these guys do it one last time type deal. So that series to me is maybe the second most interesting. The first, I would agree with you, though, Washington and Pittsburgh.
It's a beaut. It is a beaut.
All right, well, that's all you got for me, Matty. So I'll run
It is a beaut. Hey, now, it is a beaut.
I'm going to run the bump music. Before we die out on momentum, I want to keep that going. The good feelings
Hey,
rolling.
it's a beaut.
A beaut indeed. Around the corner, Matthew Coller of 1500 ESPN in Minneapolis. He's a hockey insider for ESPN. A lot of knowledge. He's going to drop that next on TBD.
You're you. I'm me. I hope you listened to the first part of the show to learn our names. We're back here and to be determined.
I'll do the Twitter handles then. At Sports by Bond with @TravsMatt, joined by @Matthew Coller. of 1500 ESPN and an ESPN Hockey Insider. Got to clarify that. Matthew Coller, what's going on, sir?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Very good.
Can't complain on this Sunday, Monday when people are hearing the show.
Yeah.
I always confuse that. You host a podcast too, sir. Does it air daily? Or that
not
day?
usually. It's kind of infrequently. Kind of do it whenever I get a chance.
And it drops.
I try to not give out the date when I'm doing it.
Yeah, see, that's a smarter idea. That's how you end up in Minneapolis and not in Mom's basement. So
It's a nice basement, though.
Yeah.
it's not a bad setup. I can't complain. I did a lot of legwork. I do have a before picture, which I do not want to post, but it was a disaster before. It's cleaned up a lot better than what you see right now. It used to have some gaudy orange paint, and yeah, it was an SU theme that it wasn't the correct orange, so it was bad.
Well, I'm going with the Adam Schefter look with my bookshelf in the background.
And also,
Doesn't have that many books on it, but it's a shelf.
it's very classy. You need a helmet of some sort. That's maybe the only missing piece.
Yeah, I do have a little bobblehead guy of Michael Kadire, former Twins player, back there. So
Very nice.
That's the centerpiece of it, and then some DVDs and stuff. It's no Schefter's bookshelf, but it's not bad.
Hey, it happens. And those watching on the video version, whenever I get around to editing this, will notice that Matthew's upside down. Technical issue. I'm not smart enough to figure it out, so we'll actually flip him in the video when he's on. But when you're seeing us, he's going to be upside down.
So I'm in the background upside down.
You're in the background upside down, which is it's different. It's a first. It is a first for the show.
Nothing wrong with that.
All right, bud, let's jump right into this. Nashville playing today. They take care of business against St. Louis. And I really love this series. I was very intrigued by it. I thought St. Louis had really outkicked their coverage in a way. Nashville looks very good. And I think it starts with Pecorine, but really, if you're going to talk about Nashville, to me, you got to talk about the guys on the blue line. What have you seen?
Oh, yeah, I think you're exactly right with the blue line, that they traded for PK Subban for a reason, to give them an entirely different look back there. And also, when you get an opportunity to trade for PK Subban and he's much younger than the guy you're trading, you have to take that. And I think we can now say Nashville officially won the trade since they're in the conference final. Yeah. But Subban gives them more of a dynamic offensive game coming from the back. Now, I think that his defensive game is underappreciated because everyone has pegged him as a big risk taker and things like that. But they place him with Matthias Ekholm, who to me is one of the best pure defensive defensemen in the league, which allows Subban to do whatever he needs to do. But then when the going gets tough, he can also lock down top players too, because he's such a great skater and he's physical and he can play the puck really well. So the whole series was about, for me, them getting the puck up and starting to create offense against the Blues, who clearly wanted to play a defensive first game. Against Minnesota, they were able to slow down Minnesota a lot. The Wild wanted to play up tempo and they didn't allow that. Plus they got I think, still good goaltending from Jake Allen in this series, but not flawless goaltending, which is what they got in the series against the Wild. So, Nashville ends up coming out on top. They were the better team. They had the puck a lot more. They created more chances. In this last game, there were 2-on-1s and breakaways. And I also think that their top line will finally get some credit that it deserves with Ryan Johansson and Philip Forsberg and Victor Arvidsson, guys who maybe your regular fans have not gotten a chance to see a lot, and now you will, and you'll see how good those guys really are.
So Anaheim gets an unbelievable 4-3 double overtime win, Game 5. Ducks scored 3 goals, 3 minutes, force OT. So it felt like that series might be over, but how much of a statement did Edmonton make on Sunday here?
It's really funny in hockey because the broadcasts always talk about momentum. Oh, this team's got the momentum. This team's got the momentum. No one can stop them. I would have thought after the Ducks won the game in the way they did, last 3 minutes of the game, coming back from down 3-0, they win in double overtime. All right, Ducks are unstoppable now. No one's going to be able to slow down their momentum. And then they just get the doors blown right off. Man. So I think that the series is going back to Anaheim for Game 7, which makes it really interesting, getting home ice advantage there. I think that does probably make a difference in Game 7. Thing to watch for, though, is historically, if you look at the numbers for penalties that get called throughout a series, as they go on, the penalties go down and down and down and down. So Game 7 is just going to be all about, there's going to be a lot of toughness to it. There's going to be a lot of guys playing dirty, getting away with it to it, and it'll be really interesting. I would say, yeah, sure, it was a statement game, but this series has been so wild going back and forth between, now it looks like Edmonton's in charge of the series. They were up 2-0, and now it looks like Anaheim's coming back, that I have no idea what to expect in Game 7, but I would say that if John Gibson comes out and plays as poorly as he did in Game 6, then there won't be much to talk about, because Edmonton's offense is so exciting to watch. Leon Draisaitl coming up big in this game, but McDavid will almost anytime he gets a chance. So I feel like it should be a great Game 7, but I thought that about today's game too.
It's amazing to me that we have yet to have a Game 7 in this postseason. Is that amazing to you? I can't be the one that's flabbergasted by this.
What's really amazing about it is that they've had so many overtime games. Yeah. So you've had these close series where it seems, where if you match up the total goals for, goals against for most of these series, they've been close and they felt close. But no, you're right. No series has gone to Game 7 until now.
The Caps hang on in Game 5. Sid the Kid returning, which, I mean, you can look at that either way you want. You can look at it as toughness, or you can look at it as stupid, given his concussion history. Can the Caps be the hockey version of the Cubs? Can they be the hockey version of the Cavs? And I guess we can even throw the Patriots, because they were down, 28-3 in the Super Bowl. Can they be that team to come from this 3-1 deficit?
They can, for sure. I, though, wonder if they're going to end up being the hockey version of the Philadelphia Eagles during all of my childhood with Donovan McNabb, where it was always good, but it was never quite good enough.
Right. Yeah.
And this series, they should be the better team. And I think that through a lot of it, they've been the better team. But Braden Holtby has let them down. Their defense has let them down at times, just certain lapses where they've allowed Pittsburgh to be better. They've outshot Pittsburgh by a lot. They've had the puck a lot more, and there have been long stretches where Pittsburgh is just getting the puck and flipping it out and just trying to hang on for dear life, but the Capitals haven't been able to get that big goal at the right time. Kind of reminds me a little bit of that Wild and St. Louis series where one team was controlling the puck, but the other team was hanging on and still winning. But if the Capitals don't get it done right here, you really do have to wonder about, will it ever get done in the Alex Ovechkin era? Because this year they were the number one team in the league, not just with standings points, but also if you dig into the analytics a little bit, they outscored teams by more than any other team, 5-on-5. They were a good puck possession team. They had everything. And then they added Kevin Shattenkirk to the mix too, who's a very good offensive defenseman. And you just say, all right, if this was one of the best teams that you've ever had during the Ovechkin era, one of the deepest teams, one of the deepest on defense, and you still couldn't get it done, then I just don't know if it's going to happen.
Yeah, they went all in, and their GM even said so. They're like, this is kind of the push when they got Kevin Shattenkirk.
So New York, Ottawa, been the most competitive hockey, arguably, but not always the most exciting. So tell me, why should we keep any eye on either of these teams going forward?
Because it could get hilarious. I mean, both of these teams are bad. To me, they're both bad. They are both very flawed hockey teams, especially Ottawa, who was, I think they ranked 22nd in goals scored this year, and they were 23rd of the power play. They have a really good goalie, but only one great defenseman, and he's really great, and that's Erik Karlsson.
Yeah.
But this is a team that doesn't have very many high-end offensive players. They don't have great depth. They're happy to dress Chris Neil in a hockey game in 2017, which is just mind-blowing. I mean, seriously, Chris Neil is still in the league, guys. Did you know that? I mean,
not until I watched this series a little more carefully, because I didn't watch Ottawa during the regular season. They're kind of like that forgotten team, and they snuck into the playoffs.
Well, for good reason. They snuck into the playoffs. They were pretty good during the regular season for a stretch, and then they started to fall off. But they drew the easiest team to play, which made no sense to me, how when you're very mediocre during the regular season, like Ottawa was, and somehow you draw Boston, who was the worst Eastern Conference team in the playoffs by their record. So why do you get rewarded for being mediocre? I don't understand that really.
I don't
and
get
the Rangers,
this new system. I don't understand this new system at all.
Totally baffled by the playoff system and how you want two bad teams playing each other. So here we are in round 2 with two bad teams playing each other again.
Yeah.
And the Rangers should be better. They were a better regular season team. They have Henrik Lundqvist, but the one thing about Lundqvist is this year was his worst statistical year by about 10 miles during the regular season. And he has had games where he's been really excellent and then others where he's been very shaky. And I wonder if, just like we were talking about the end of Washington's chance to win with Ovechkin, if we're also toward the end of Lundqvist's chances to win with New York, if not at the very end here, if this might be his last shot.
It's interesting you say that. I think there's a lot of the talking heads nationally that feel not only that way, but feel like this could be the end of King Henry, that this is, we're there. And that's kind of, we've reached the peak and now this is the downhill, and that downhill came really quickly.
Yeah, it did. And I did an article on that, on just looking at goalies and how they age. And 35 is the point where they fall off a cliff. And that's exactly how old Henrik Lundqvist is. Just historically, you see save percentages go way down as goalies get into their mid-late 30s. And that might just be what happens with Lundqvist, even though he keeps himself in beautiful shape. He's a gorgeous man. But still, time is going to catch up with you eventually, no matter who you are.
The suits will not matter on the ice.
Right.
Suits will not matter. All right, Matthew Coller of 1500 ESPN, a hockey insider for ESPN as well. So being that insider, who's in the cup final this year, and who hoists Lord Stanley's Cup at the end?
Well, I think it's going to be Nashville and Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh getting Crosby back, as you alluded to. I'm not sure if that was the smartest move or not. I mean, I don't pretend to have his brain scans over here, but looking from the outside and knowing the history, and also knowing that Gary Bettman continues to say that CTE doesn't exist when even the NFL has had to acknowledge that there is a major, major problem here with concussions in their players, and it's the same thing with hockey. So when Crosby misses part of the first part of the year with a concussion, and he's also got another one in the playoffs, and he missed time earlier in his career, you start to go, boy, these things have got to be adding up on him. And it just does worry you a lot about him coming back. But just put that aside, with him back in the lineup now, I think that they can get one of the next two, and then they should roll over whoever they face next. If they face Ottawa, that should be a clean sweep, if not 5 games. And Nashville, I think, is just the best team. I also think Nashville, even though it was, you mentioned good games against St. Louis, I feel like whoever comes out of this Edmonton-Anaheim series is going to be exhausted when they do. It's a 7-gamer, and it's just been a wild series that I feel like either one of those teams is going to be pretty worn down going against Nashville.
It's crazy to think about, too, that Pittsburgh could ultimately win the Stanley Cup here, and they were probably the most banged-up team coming into the postseason. That is astonishing to me, because normally in any sport, you've got to be healthy to make it to the final in any sport. And this is a team that looks like they can go back-to-back for the first time since Detroit did it in the 90s.
It's really been amazing how they've made up for not having Chris Letang. And talk about unlikely heroes. I don't think that anyone had Marc-Andre Fleury carrying them through.
No.
Right? I mean, when Marc-Andre Fleury went in for a game last year, he was pretty much a disaster and has been in the playoffs for almost his entire career. And here he is after a poor regular season coming in and has a .925 save percentage in this series. It's just he's really bailed them out. He didn't have the greatest last game, but he has really bailed them out at times during this series. And then, they haven't even gotten hot on the power play, which if they they do, they're almost unstoppable. So I do think, though, if that ended up being the matchup, Nashville and Pittsburgh, it would be a tremendous series. The great defense for Nashville, the Sidney Crosby, and the great forwards for Pittsburgh. 2 goalies that are both good but also have been shaky at times during their careers. That offers kind of some extra intrigue there.
So getting away from the playoff talk and talking a little Sabres now. So Jason Botterill of those Penguins you were just talking about a second ago appears to be the front runner. So what do you know of him, and do you think he's going to be a good fit?
I believe it's Bo Tyrell.
Now it's a third pronunciation we've got.
No.
It's Johnson, but it's just a silent Botterill.
From what I know of Jason Botterill, there's a few things that you really like about him. First of all, that he was an ex-player, but when he was finished playing, he was a former Rochester Amherst, actually. When he was done playing, he, from my understanding, went and got his MBA and is a very, very bright guy, and then has been in a front office and organization that has been very successful. Now, you could say, hey, they've had Crosby. But if you look at last year and some of the moves that they made in hiring Mike Sullivan and making some trades for guys like Trevor Daly, Carl Hagelin, and completely midseason revamping their roster and how they played, it kind of screams to exactly what the Buffalo Sabres need, right?
Yeah.
Is that the Sabres have last year this kind of archaic defense and way of playing, especially, with guys like Zach Bogosian, Dmitry Kulikov, that maybe in the 90s people would have liked, but not so much now the way they play. You look at how Pittsburgh has built up their defense with all these puck movers and offensively gifted guys. I think that's exactly what the Sabres need to do. So Botterill comes in maybe with a philosophy of building your team that way, and then we'll have the superstar to build around with Jack Eichel. So I like the idea of what he could bring from there. And there are some people from Pittsburgh who say that he had kind of been being groomed anyway, but they brought in Jim Rutherford as kind of that older, experienced person, but it was a lot of his ideas that resulted in those great moves. So if that's the case, then I think the Sabres have got themselves maybe a special general manager here.
Well, and it's interesting, too, that you look at the Sabres roster and you think offensively, okay, that's a pretty good top six. There's some good pieces there. And as you said, you obviously build around Jack. But where do they lack? From behind the forwards. Leonard, I'll be honest, I wasn't the biggest Leonard fan. Like you, I didn't like that trade for a first-rounder for a goalie. I was skeptical of him to begin with. I thought he sort of proved himself this year.
Yeah.
Maybe
I thought he was
despite
pretty
what was in
decent.
front of him.
Yeah, I thought he was pretty decent. I look at his cap hit, too, not being that bad. And that's where I look with goalies. What did you get versus how much you paid them? And if you didn't pay that much, but of course they had to pay a first-round pick to get him, which is way too big of a price.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons Tim Murray, I think, doesn't have his job anymore. But putting that aside, I say they're fine in goal, that you don't need to make a big move in goal. But there are two areas where it needs to be just blown up and completely overhauled. And that is the bottom six, and that is the entire defense from everyone not named Rasmus Ristolainen. I mean, Jake McCabe is an NHL player, so he can stay. He's fine.
Yep.
And you're going to get Brendan Gooley up there, and I think he's going to be a very good NHL player. So there you've got three. And that's about it. That's all you have right now. So I think what they need to focus on is looking for kind of the guys who are a little bit underappreciated around the league. You look at the Rangers, and they went out and picked up Michael Grabner, who was never a superstar player. He never did what he's done this year, so that couldn't have been expected. But he was always like a pretty reasonably decent role player. And the Sabres last year were running guys like Nick Delorier, who had 0 points or something. I mean, when you're running guys out there who cannot help you at all on the bottom six, as opposed to some of these other deep teams who are in the playoffs that have solid third and fourth liners who you can run out there, or who have guys who can move up the lineup. That's the thing with someone like Grabner is if someone gets hurt in the top six and you put Michael Grabner up there, you're not losing a ton. But with the Sabres, they went through injuries. So they had Eichel out. They had O'Reilly out for a little while this year. They lost Oposo for a little bit at the end. So when you lose guys like that and you're forced to push a Marcus Foligno up to play 18 minutes a night or something, that's just way too much for somebody like that. So you want to have those role players that they need to fill that out badly. And then I think that there are always underappreciated defensemen out there because the old school hockey guys, they love their size, they love their grit, they love their toughness, and they don't love players like Mark Pesic always, who got traded to Florida, had a very good year in Florida. They weren't a great team, but he had a pretty decent year. He's not a big goal scorer. He's not big. He's not tough, but he's a very good puck mover, and that's exactly what I think that they need. And they need to find a partner for Ristolainen long term. Yeah, because he was severely hurt by having Jake McCabe was okay for him, but not exactly a perfect fit. But I think he was severely hurt by having Josh Georges with him for the better part of, 2 years, 3 years?
Yeah.
I mean, that has not really helped him at all. So you need to make that maybe priority number one.
Golly. Matthew and I could sit here and talk hockey all day, I know. I know Maddie's. This isn't necessarily your wheelhouse, being that.
Hey,
it's
no,
Puck,
hey,
but
I'm just getting informed.
I hope
now.
you're learning something because listen, I'm ready to hire him for the Sabres GM job.
Yeah, right. Jeez.
Goodness gracious! All right, well we've talked some puck. Let's get to know you just a tad bit better if we can. We'll go into the final 5 questions, starting with your alma mater.
Which one would you like? I've got 2 of them.
Oh well, let's do both then. What do you got? I mean, I've got 2 as well. So.
Oh, sorry, you broke up a little bit there. So
I said
just
I've got,
where I went to college is what
where
you're
you went to
asking?
college, yeah, because I've got 2 alma maters as well from college. I've got 2 pieces of paper with my name on it, so you can give us both.
Oh, very good. Very good. Well, I went to Finger Lakes Community College for 2 years and then Brockport for 3 because it took me a little extra time to get all graduated there.
Hey, nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that.
Number 2 is a hot dog, a sandwich.
I've heard that question so many times and so many good arguments on both sides of it that I have no idea. I just have no idea. I don't know how to answer it. I don't think it is, but then I've heard really good cases, so I don't know.
Yeah, we've heard
We've
very
heard
good arguments.
We've heard great stuff on both ends.
And it's true on both ends. How do you pronounce it? GIF or GIF?
I have always gone with Jif.
Okay.
But I'm not, like, on these things, they're so ambiguous that I have trouble fighting people to the death about them, right? Like, some people will say, if you say Jif, I will push you into traffic. I'm like,
that seems a bit much.
It's fine, whatever. Bottle, Boterel, I don't care.
All right, number 4, favorite beer.
I don't drink, guys, actually. So I would say Root.
Root.
We
Fair enough.
have had a root beer before.
We have had a root
so,
beer.
No problem there.
Patrick Wu, I believe it was. Said that case of, what was it Mugs? Or
Oh, yeah. Are you Mugs or what's the other one? The other big one?
Barks?
Barks.
I will take, well, Barks is very solid, but I will also take A&W cream style all day long.
All right.
Very nice.
Fair enough. That works. Where can we find you on the internet? Where can we read your stuff, listen to your stuff, all that stuff?
A couple of places on Twitter at Matthew Coller, Coller is a good place to find me. Also 1500ESPN.com if you're into the football. That's where I cover the Vikings, and ESPN Insiders where I write most of my hockey.
That's the hockey stuff. All right, Matthew Coller of the stuff he just said.
Yeah.
Thanks for the time, buddy. We appreciate it.
All right, thanks, guys.
Ooh, I put the bump music up a little too high. Or at least it sounds that way in my headphones. Around the break, we've got some numbers. We've got, what is it? Get off my lawn. I got a gripe with the airport, like everyone
Don't we
does.
all?
And we're going to talk a little NBA playoffs. All that and more. TBD rolling on after the bump music.
TBD. It's me. It's you. We're back. Woohoo.
You can hashtag that one.
It's a long hashtag.
And at tweet the show, at TBD_show. At tweet Trabs in that one, at Trabs Matt.
It's the woohoo that did everything. Just the inquisitive woohoo. Woohoo?
I'm at Sports by Bond. This is the C block, is I think what Maddie was trying to get after. This is indeed the C block.
So I wouldn't dare say the actual letter because I've screwed it up.
Last time you jumped
oh,
in
yeah, so it was
hot
last week.
on episode 9.
And the thing is, when I mess it up, the 2 times I messed it up, I hit that baby hard.
Buddy, you're committed, though. That's the key. You commit to it.
I hit that baby hard. All in wrongness. Oh, my gosh.
What a way to start the second half of the show.
Woohoo.
What a way. Let's get into some segments. B-side story, not a B-side story, but since we talked so much hockey, we can't not talk about the NBA playoffs. You know, despite what some TBD polls have said, the NBA is actually a more popular
What is
sport.
that? What is that?
The
I
NBA,
love you listeners. I'm just kidding.
The NBA, a more popular sport, but amongst our listeners, or at least on Twitter, hockey is. So we went with hockey. Plus, I'm biased and I voted for that. So I did.
Did it get by one vote?
If it did, that would be ironic. I don't remember. I think it was like 60 to 30%, something like that. 65, 35, something like that.
I'm sorry, but I'm going to sneeze.
My goodness, I just hit the mute button. And
Yeah,
it may have picked up a little bit.
Right. It's definitely coming over to your end. I'm sorry.
Wow. All right. Just going to make a quick mental note here.
All right.
Maybe for the PGP. All right, so
On the
B-side
video
story.
version, you'll see me looking up something. I'm not ready for this segment.
All right. The Cavs sweep the Raptors, improving to 8-0 in the 2017 postseason. The phrase that comes to mind, it could be a word, I guess. Well, more of a phrase. Business-like.
Yeah, I
that
think
just seems to be the approach for
throw a
for
hyphen in
Cleveland.
there.
Yeah, throw a hyphen in there. It's a one word, right?
I know we've talked about in this show before the fact that they had a lot of people sitting at the end of the year. Well, this is kind of how the Spurs and Greg Popovich do it.
Yeah.
They're looking like they're pretty spry. So Tyronn Lue is doing the deed. He's going after Popovich. He's using his...
They're using that method.
Yeah.
They're using that method. I mean, listen, you got LeBron James. The dude can just take over at any point, and he's showing that. He's showing that with the numbers he's getting in the playoffs so far, and he's showing that, listen, we don't want to play or exude any more energy than we absolutely have to in this postseason. It's clear as day. And on the west side, Western Conference side, I should say, or west side, that works too, you're seeing the same thing with the Golden State Warriors. It's a very business-like approach. It's been 7 up, 7 down, and it's probably going to go 8 for 8 here.
What they don't have, though, they don't have LeBron going in the Toronto Raptors series. I know Kyle Lowry wasn't there the entire time, but they have Serge Ibaka now. They went out at the deadline, got him. LeBron, 60.2% from the field, 55% from deep, 84.6% from the stripe.
Those are numbers.
In the most recent game for those Warriors you just talked about a second ago, the big three coming into this season before they went out and got Kevin Durant did not play that well. Draymond Green a little bit better, especially because he provides a lot more things than scoring the basketball. A little bit more unlike Klay Thompson, Stephen Curry. They do their stuff, but they're definitely not the jack of all trades, if you want to use a cliche, that Draymond Green is. They didn't do well. I'm actually saying Kevin Durant went out and got 38 points.
That's why you go out and sign Kevin Durant, though, for games like this.
And I was one of the detractors saying that might hurt the chemistry. But, hey, and it doesn't really matter if it hurts the chemistry if he's going to almost single-handedly win a game.
But as it's been said before, and I think plenty of times this season, because that situation's been overanalyzed this entire year as to how that group would work, Kevin Durant seems to be the perfect guy to fit into that system where really Kevin Durant, I think you can plug him into any scenario and he'll find ways not only to get his, but to get guys involved. That's the unselfish nature of Kevin Durant. I think why people enjoy watching him play.
Well, and he's done this before on a younger scale or a smaller scale, whatever word you want to describe it as, when he was with the Oklahoma City group with James Harden and Russell Westbrook.
Great point.
Yes, it was at a younger level, so they're not producing as much, not as big of parts in the actual NBA landscape, but he's used to that kind of concept. And he's used to being able to get around, maybe not being the only big-time guy on a team in terms of what other defenses are looking at you as.
I posed this question to you in a previous episode that I cannot remember the number at this time, but go back and download it in the archives. Are we destined for a third straight Cavs-Warriors final? I posed it to you then. I'm going to pose it to you now because to me it just seems pretty apparent. Give me a reason why maybe we're not or we are. Either way.
I think we're not.
Okay.
Because I think the Cavaliers will get there again.
I would say, who is the team to disrupt this then?
I think it's the Spurs. I mean, the Spurs are up currently as we record this on Sunday night on Houston, and Houston is quite the team in this playoffs, quite this team this season in general.
Yeah.
And they're up right now. They're not up big. They haven't been unbelievable consistently, I would say. Obviously, they haven't won every game of the series so far, but it's hard to go against Greg Popovich, especially because there's a little bit of youth plugged in there. Tony Parker's having his injury problems right now.
I was just going to bring that up.
But they do have that veteran presence. Paul Gasol's there now. He helps with that. Aldridge has been around the block, maybe not getting very deep in the playoffs, but it's hard to go against Popovich.
How much does the Tony Parker injury hurt the Spurs?
Well, it hurts them a bunch because, like I said a second ago, they have so much youth incorporated in this team now. And not just guys like Patty Mills, who at this point, as far as role players go, he's not really at that young of a piece that they have off the bench for them anymore. But, I mean, DeJounte Murray, he started his first ever playoff game. And when they got him as more of a project guy in this most recent NBA draft, I don't think they were expecting that at all.
Right. Well, same thing with Kawhi Leonard.
It's huge.
Same thing with Kawhi. Real quick, just the job that James Harden has done in, I think, this entire season was a shooting guard. And they said to him, listen, we're going to bring you into the point. A completely different position. To me, he's not only embraced it, but he has thrived in that position.
It's almost just as impressive, if not maybe a little bit more impressive, than what you saw with Russell Westbrook this year in terms of averaging a triple-double, which is absurd. But this is a guy that was a shooting guard.
Yeah.
Like you just said. And he went over to being someone who has to pass the ball a little bit more.
With
being a one-man, and he was unbelievable in the assist column in terms of the entire NBA.
Right,
to change positions and be at the tip top like that the first time around is unbelievable.
You had that pregnant pause there. You left me hanging.
I don't know what that means.
I thought I was going to jump right
pause.
in. Just a pause that was a little longer, a bigger pause.
Oh, so you go.
Bigger
when you said
pause.
longer, I was very concerned.
Bigger, longer. I mean, whatever.
Bigger, pregnant. I got
you goofed me there. I thought because I was going to dive right in. I'm
going to give you the okie.
I was going to take it, but you did. You
little
okeyed me there.
Little rope-a-dope.
It happens.
Skirt.
It happens. Let's jump to by the numbers. The number this week is 13, as in the number of years between wins for one John Daly. On Sunday, Daly held on in Houston, Texas, in the Woodlands. Shout out to some of our Houston listeners.
Yes, Jameson Tyone.
We do have some Houston listeners to win the Insperity Invitational, finishing just one stroke better than Kenny Perry and Tommy Armour III.
I haven't heard of that guy, but Kenny Perry's a big name.
Yeah. I have heard of Armour III.
Oh, you have?
I can't remember what.
It's a well-known.
event.
It's a very interesting name. So if you've
It
heard it
definitely
once, you're going to remember it.
Daly's last victory was the Buick Invitational back in 2004. This also Daly's first PGA Tour Champions, formerly the Senior Tour win. And at the very end of that celebration, or very end of the day, he celebrated with some friends that was just in typical. The only thing that would have made it more John Daly, a couple of fellow golfers sprayed him and champagned him, showered him with champagne is what I should say. At the very end of the 18th, he just embraced it. The only thing that would have made it more John Daly is if it was PBR.
Yeah, and if he just had a heater in the entire time, and if it somehow stayed lit, man, if anyone could do it, it
would have been John Daly.
It's Long John. It was unbelievable because he celebrates. He has crazy pants on,
Yes.
American flag today, and then his significant other is there with the shorts version of his pants. Amazing, and he was taking it. He was getting boom shakalaka in the face with champagne,
my God.
like an inch away, and was not faltering at all. He was just stoic.
Listen, Tiger is out. Golf needs somebody. I'm not saying it's John Daly, but you know what? In the interim, this is a nice little bleep on the map for golf. God forbid he should go across the pond and do well in the Open Championship.
Yeah.
My goodness, can you imagine the uproar from a few golf fans and mainly a lot of Hooters fans? It would be spectacular.
Pants to make her dance.
Listen, the documentary. What was it? Hit it hard. I think it was. We should know that. We said it in the Open. Hit it hard. That to me was a really good look at John Daly's life, and I like when he wins. So the number this week,
it's
Maddie,
amazing.
it's fun. It's just he's fun. He's fun. The number this week is 13. All right, get off my lawn. If you're a fan of TBD, which I hope everyone is that listens to the show, you're aware we started a new podcast, the Friday, or not a new podcast, but a new show called the Friday Show. We put that one out on YouTube. This past Friday, I was down in Tampa visiting senior producer Mitch Beluco.
Mitch Moolah.
It was a little warmer there. It rained the entire week here, so I did finally pick a good week to go to Tampa because I have picked some bad weeks before. Traveling, not the funnest thing in the world, okay?
Ugh.
Don't try to get an early flight, or at least be prepared to shell out some dough. That's the get off my lawn moment. So I'll try to fill in the rest of this puzzle here so you can understand what I mean. Down in Tampa, as I said, visiting senior producer Mitch Beluco, I get to the airport early figuring, hey, maybe I'll try to get on an earlier flight and make my layover a little less stressful. Flying into Atlanta. Atlanta's the biggest airport in the country, and I had about roughly half an hour to get to my next flight, to catch my next flight, which would have gotten me back to Syracuse as I flew in to Syracuse. Not many flights going from Atlanta to Syracuse, especially at 9 o'clock at night, which is when I got into Atlanta. My flight was taken off at 9:30. Had roughly 2 hours before my scheduled flight from Tampa to Atlanta, and I was trying to get on an earlier flight, which I believe was an hour earlier or so. So I went to the desk as soon as I got to the airport, and I tried to ask the gentleman at the desk if it was possible if I could get onto that flight. He said the flight was full and it was on standby, but I could get on a list. I said, well, hey, how do I get on the list then? The guy behind the desk said there's already 5 people on this standby list, and it cost $75 just to get on the list. There's no guarantee you're even going to get on the flight,
Well,
but you got to pay $75 to get on the list. How in the world, in today's day and age, especially with what's happening surrounding these airlines, do you have the stones to ask for $75 additional dollars just to get on a list that doesn't guarantee you're going to get on a flight?
I don't understand how these companies get away with what they do. Just in general, not even just this. Like, where do you get off thinking that you can do this to human beings? They just treat people like they're subhuman. They're the actual ones that are subhuman.
Exactly. That's a great point. If it was $5, Maddie, I'd have given my $5 and said, fine. Now you've got $5 times 6 people that got on this list. That's 30 extra bucks just to get on a list. And there's no guarantee that you're going to get the money back. But $75, you do the math. My goodness. Airlines,
Crime.
Where do you get the stones? Get off my lawn.
Unacceptable.
Golly.
I'm just foaming over here.
I was foaming
at the mouth.
At the mouth. At the mouth. That was
foaming in general.
I think that's implied, right?
Frothing.
I think it's implied. Frothing, even better.
I don't think that applies.
It's good visuals. All right, let's go to Twitter takes, Maddie. Cardale Jones, Buffalo Bill quarterback. Cardale Jones graduated from Ohio State this weekend and trolled himself by writing someone, and I want to spell out some, S-U-M, the number one, once said, and I'm quoting here, "We ain't come to play school," end quote. Of course, Cardale famously said in a tweet, "Why should we have to go to class if we came here to play football?" All caps. "We ain't come here to play, all caps, school. Classes are, all caps, pointless." End tweet.
Now, a little story about this in terms of me personally. So when I wasn't covering Penn State football games, when I was a student there, I was in Nittanyville, formerly Paternoville, so the tent city, that student association. And I think just my senior year, maybe my last 2 years,
okay.
I had a cheap motorcycle helmet that
Perfect.
would write little messages, and because we were always front row on, and it usually had to do with the opponent. So mark those bad boys on there. So Cardale Jones coming up, Ohio State coming up. I wrote, "I did come here to play school." It's good that he can laugh at himself. Unfortunately, he kind of trolled himself by having another, just kind of flop in terms of having that big old typo in there. But
yeah, but I mean, listen, A for effort for Cardale. He embraced it, which is what you have to do. And listen, there were stories on every major website. It got a ton of retweets. I forgot what it actually got. It was trending at one point. That's how you do Twitter. That's a great piece of Twitter. Now, Maddie, the other great piece of Twitter that I'm going to ask you, where can we find the picture of you with a helmet on? Does it exist?
When he got drafted by the Bills, which I helped cover and whatnot for Channel 13, I looked for it everywhere on Facebook. I couldn't find it.
It doesn't exist anywhere anymore.
I know.
That's too bad. I was going to ask you to tweet it out, but
yeah.
Would have been fitting. All right, we just ruined that segment. I did, at least, by I should have done my work ahead of time and asked you that.
I'm disappointed about it.
I should have asked you ahead of time. That's my bad, Maddie. I got to know for next time. All right, bump music in. Let's get out of this segment. Around the corner, hey, we found that we've got a very devout listenership. Devotee listenership in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. So we're going to ask our beer guru, Will Cleveland, to give us some top Pennsylvania breweries, etc. That around the corner as TBD rolls on.
TBD equals MC squared. You know it's true. Let it happen. We're back here on the show.
To be determined. It's too much math for me. It's too much math for me.
And it's not correct at all.
This late in an episode. At Sports by Bond, joined by at Trebs. Matt, the show, at TBD_show on the Twitter. And we're joined by the beer guru himself, at Will Cleveland 13. Mr. Cleveland, like the city, what's going on?
Hi, how are you handsome gentlemen doing?
Very good.
I appreciate that. Will joining us from outside the beautiful
I am in the
city
middle of West Irondequoit right now.
Okay, West Irondequoit. We're trying to confirm that.
Very nice.
For the video version, whenever I get around to editing these things, because I am very well behind, Very American type shot right now from Mr. Cleveland.
Yes.
Rocking
Carhartt hat, American flag.
with a beer in hand. So
whatever that is. Yeah.
a little bit of facial hair.
Yeah.
A little bit of facial hair. Trying to confirm on the bigger monitor here because it is.
Puberty's gonna be so cool.
I got it last week, so it was good. I've got
Nice.
some fuzz.
I made it to 33 so far, so maybe.
I'm a real boy. I can't grow. It takes forever for me to grow anything.
It's
Forever.
disgusting.
Yeah.
I've just given up.
It's been a couple of weeks since Maddie's been growing the chin music back.
No, it's been a lot more than that.
Is it really?
And it's barely here. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Eh.
All right, Will.
Hey, we're here to talk about beer.
We bring you on exactly to talk about some beers, and what I texted Will earlier this week that Pennsylvania is our second most downloaded state. The Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, right behind the Empire State. So I figured let's do a shout out to all the Pennsylvania listeners, and let's go with some top breweries, some top beers, and then what's new. So let's start with your top breweries in the Commonwealth, the Keystone State, if you will.
Pennsylvania's a really good beer state. It's only getting better too, which is super exciting. I think probably the most buzzed about brewery in Pennsylvania is probably Tired Hands, which is in Ardmore, Pennsylvania, about 15-20 minutes outside of Philly. They're really famous for just doing some really weird off the wall kind of stuff. Like milkshake IPAs, like IPAs made with lactose and vanilla and actually the body's made to basically resemble a milkshake. They've gotten a lot of buzz from that. They do a lot of different types of saisons and some barrel aging, a lot of foraging. I know they're famous for like going out and about and kind of finding like wild mushrooms or something and making a wild ale out of that and stuff like that. So they're probably, I would say, the most famous Pennsylvania brewery in terms of craft beer. Yuengling's obviously the original American brewery.
Sure.
North America's oldest brewery, or not? I don't know if it's North America, but anyways, America's oldest brewery. Dick Yuengling, he loves Donald Trump, so we're not going to talk about that.
We'll skip by that.
Philly's a really good beer city. It's got some incredible beer bars. Places like Monk's Cafe is arguably one of the best beer bars I've ever been to in my life. Pittsburgh, I think, I'm a huge Pirates fan, so I love Pittsburgh, which is really up and coming beer city.
Yes.
My favorite brewery in Pittsburgh is this place in Braddock, Pennsylvania, called the Brew Gentleman. Started by these two guys who were in the same engineering frat at Carnegie Mellon, and they just make some incredible like saisons and stouts and like Northeast style IPAs that everyone's kind of clamoring for right now. Pittsburgh's got some amazing breweries though. East End makes one of my all-time favorite beers called Gratitude, which is a English style barley wine that I really love. I could keep going on.
If there's ever a doubt that Will doesn't know his stuff, that's it, because there was no prep work done. It was a text message that said, "Hey, let's talk about Pennsylvania breweries," and he's like, "Okay, I'm good," and that was it.
And he got a Pirates plug in there. He got the Buccos in there.
The Buccos in there.
It's a beautiful thing.
Bless them. They suck so bad right now.
Yeah. Luckily, they're playing the Brewers right now, so.
Yeah, they're losing right now. They were down 6-2 last time I checked.
Yeah.
But
Well, that is a very, very good point. All right, so whittling it down from there, what are your favorite beers in the state of Pennsylvania?
I'm a real big fan. There's a brewery that's actually based in Cleveland called Fatheads, but they have a spot in the south side of Pittsburgh on Carson Street, and they make this beer called Headhunter IPA. It's basically like the quintessential West Coast style IPA, so super like long lasting, really pleasant bitterness, but a lot of like grapefruit, really pithy, really, really piney, dank almost. I think they're one of my all-time favorite breweries, and they have a brew pub location in Pittsburgh. They're the one that probably people would be most excited about around here is that Trogs Independent Brewery. They're based out of used to be in Harrisburg. They're now in Hershey, and they're famous for Nugget Nectar, which is their Imperial Amber, really hoppy Imperial Amber that comes out usually every February. They're probably among the best breweries that's available in our market because every beer they release is really, really well done, and I have no qualms with spending money on their beers because I know I'm going to enjoy it even if I've never had it before.
Is it a reasonably priced brew?
Yeah, you can get reasonably priced 6-packs of their stuff for $11, $12, $13, somewhere in that range.
Okay, which
So
is
not-
average
nothing that's
for a craft beer.
nothing's
then.
going to break the bank.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
What are as I put down here? What's brewing in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania? So what's new? Is there something new that you're excited about, or that maybe we can get up here in the Empire State?
There's not any available right now in the Empire State. I think a lot of the smaller breweries are kind of following some of the Northeast style examples, where they're canning a lot of their hoppy offerings and making those available only at the brewery. Because there's obviously much more money to be made if you're not paying a middleman, not paying a distributor to get your beer. So there's a few breweries in Pittsburgh that I'm super excited about. There's one called Dancing Gnome, like a lawn gnome, dancing gnome.
Very nice.
Their brewers used to brew at Trillium in Boston, which is one of the most buzzed about breweries around. They just started canning some of the beers too, and I've heard really, really good stuff about them. I haven't had any of their beers yet. There's a few spots in Pittsburgh though. There's another place called Insurrection that I've heard really good things about. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's any like Pittsburgh breweries that are any like Pennsylvania breweries that are kind of headed into this market.
Well,
It seems like a lot of the Pennsylvania beers that we get are beers that we've been getting for a long time. Breweries like Weyerbacher, which I think is in Easton, Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Yeah, Easton, I believe. Places like Stouts Brewing, STOUDT''S.
Okay.
We've been getting their beers for probably 10, 15 years. And they're all make really classic types of styles, and like Hardy Imperial Stouts or stuff like that. There's a good mixture of Pennsylvania stuff that we get in our market.
I got a
walk
question.
in any of your Wegmans and find stuff.
Right. As you just mentioned, there's a lot of breweries where you have to go to the actual brewery to get the beer. Like you've got to travel to Pennsylvania. So is there a brewery that you would suggest people, even if they live in Pennsylvania or they're up here in Syracuse, Rochester, making the drive down? Is there one brewery that you would suggest going to?
Like I said, Brew Gentleman and Braddock would be the one I would travel to the most, but the other one that does just incredible stuff is Voodoo, which is in Meadville, Pennsylvania. But they also have, where Allegheny College is there. They also have locations in Erie and then one in Homestead, right outside of Pittsburgh. And they're famous for just their barrel-aged stuff, and then also just some of their hoppy creations. I heartily recommend a trip to either of those two. They nail every style, and just cool atmospheres and good people. So I recommend each of those huge.
So I see you have a hearty glass of hydration in your hand right now.
I
What
do.
are you drinking? What are you drinking?
I'm drinking a Saison that these two guys made, these two homebrewers who are potentially looking to open a brewery down the road. So they're kind of having like a shindig in the one guy's backyard, and they live a few streets down from me in Irondequoit. So they invited me. So they're kind of sampling a few of their beers and asking for some feedback. So this is kind of a pretty traditional Saison, clean Saison. So it's really heavy on kind of like the banana, like the clovey notes, almost a little spicy from whatever hops they used. So it's a nice beer. I'm enjoying it.
That's the advantage to being a beer guy, that you get invited places, people want you to try their beers.
Yeah, that's awesome.
It's pretty awesome.
You got
And
a
I've already
tough
met a
job,
bunch
Will.
of-
You got a real tough
bunch of
job.
cool. I mean, if it's not crime, it's beer. So you take the good with the bad. And I've already met a bunch of cool people today, so you can't really complain about that.
That's not bad at all.
It's awesome.
Will Cleveland of the Democrat and Chronicle, forgot to get that plug in the very beginning. Will, can you give us a preview or something that you're working on in terms of the brewery stuff, not necessarily the breaking news?
Yeah. So the next few things I'm working on, there's a brewery that's opened up in Seneca Falls in the next few weeks. It's called Fleur de Lis. I'm meeting with them, not this coming week, but the following week, to see what's going on down there. And then there's a brewery that's opened up in Manchester, Shortsville area. That's out. What's that? That's not Wayne County, is it? Or is that Ontario County? I get them mixed up. Anyways, those guys should be open in the next few weeks. I'm gonna go visit them and see what's going on there. And then I got a bigger piece planned about kind of the craft beer misconceptions in our market.
Okay.
And I'm trying to look at doing some research on some of the actual numbers to see like what are the most consumed beers in our market. I think that might kind of surprise people, so that should be interesting.
Very
That's great stuff. You can find him, all of his stuff. Is it at dnc.com? What's the website now?
It's democratandchronicle.com.
Democratandchronicle.com. And then on Twitter, it's at Will Cleveland, the number 13.
Exactly.
There we
And
go.
DNC Digital too, right? On Twitter as well. That'll have your stuff as well.
On Twitter, we're just at DANDC. So D and C, literally spelled out.
Okay.
Wow, that's a
So
good
spot-
get. That's actually a pretty good get.
Yeah, man.
Whenever you can have not a lot of characters in there, remember it better.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
No, I know. I mean, W. Cleve and some of these other ones were already taken, so I kind of had to end up with Will Cleveland and 13 being my lucky number. I just went with it.
It's a beautiful thing.
It's not an employee of 13 Wham in Rochester. Will Cleveland.
The funny part is no one's ever actually asked me that, which shocks me. That no one's actually are you Will Cleveland 13 because you work for Channel 13 at some point, and you just you don't want to lose that verification in your Twitter account, so you haven't changed it. But no, I was never worked for 13. I respect a lot of people over there though.
All right, Will Cleveland, we appreciate the time, sir.
Thank you,
Later, guys.
Our thanks to Will Cleveland, Democrat and Chronicle, our beer guru. Interesting stuff about Pennsylvania beers, too.
He's a monster.
He is. Every time.
In the best way possible. He's just such a knowledge dropper.
Let's go to It's Got Legs, Maddie. And this one, a little surprisingly, you suggested. I didn't jump all over this one, and I'm kind of disappointed in myself for this one. Selection Sunday, as you alluded to in the open, not just for the guys on the basketball court, but for the guys on the lacrosse field as well.
Yes, I am so excited. So excited.
Selection Sunday for Division I men's lacrosse. The bracket came out, so the video version you can see us referring to said bracket. The most intriguing game to me, round one, Albany-UNC. A couple of Rochester guys playing on the Albany squad. They've got the best Fogo in the nation in T.D. Erlin. As a freshman. He's a Victor kid. T.D. Erlin, shout out to the Victor program.
Tristan D.
That should be a very good game. But then we go to the lower right-hand side of the bracket. Your Penn State Nittany Lions playing Towson on the 13th. My Syracuse Orange playing Yale. Looks like we're destined to meet here.
We were talking about it right before we came on to this segment. It's funny. So Syracuse and Yale play. So you're just mentioning best Fogo in the nation in terms of percentage. T.D. Erlin, the only 2 games this season for the Great Danes where he has not won that battle. Yale, Syracuse.
Interesting.
But you got to feel for Albany to go against the defending champion who just very recently ACC tournament beat a top-ranked Syracuse team.
Yeah.
And they have to go against them as the Tar Heels being the lower seed. And if they win,
you got to face Maryland probably because Maryland's going to face
dog.
either Bryant or Monmouth, and they're going to cruise in that one. So, yeah, not the draw if you're an Albany fan. I'm really interested. The game of the tournament could actually be Syracuse-Penn State. That really could be the game of the tournament.
It'd be beautiful.
If they get together. All right, Maddie. That's the It's Got Legs story, so keep your eye on that. We'll definitely keep our eye on it. Hopefully a little bit more so on my end in the upcoming episodes. All right, time to thank some people, as we did with Will Cleveland of the Democrat and Chronicle. Thank him for his beer knowledge. Matthew Coller, a hockey insider for ESPN, and a Vikings reporter on 1500 ESPN in Minneapolis. Thanks to those guys for coming on. Our thanks to senior producer Mitch Beluco. Our thanks to executive producer at Sports by Mom. My thanks to you, Maddie Trabs. Make sure you check us out on social media, Twitter, Instagram, email the show, all the links to be found on the Twitter page and whatnot. Check out the post-game press conference every Wednesday. Check out the Friday show on YouTube. Later, boys.